Hi everyone, my name's Jade. I'm an alcoholic honored to serve as your Panel 67 delegate. Following is your report on the 68th General Service Conference, AA, a solution for all generations. I hope you like it. Some of you may remember from last year's report the 1992 DVD Your AA General Service Office, the Grapevine, and the General Service Structure. I used it to illustrate how we get things done in AA. And because so many of you saw it and found it outdated, but still very informative, you decided you would like to see the DVD updated. It became an area motion that passed at our 2017 October voting assembly and was then submitted to our conference coordinator and later accepted to go onto the conference agenda. I will keep you in suspense for now and fill you in more about that and other items later. This year, instead of a DVD, I was lucky enough to get my hands on some audio from Bill W. on why we have a conference. Straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak, this is about 8 minutes of Bill's 1954 service talk at the conference.
So here we were, sitting now as an incorporated board, providing services that would enable this society to hold together, to carry its message, and we still assumed the right to be the guarantors and guardians of its tradition and general welfare. Here we were, growing isolation. At the time, things were going well. We hadn't made any great blunder, so that the confidence of the society was shaken. Money was coming in with which we could work. In the board, we had aggregated a self-assumed authority, and quite properly so, during the infancy of the movement. We had aggregated the authority to print your literature, to resolve group troubles, to be answerable to the public, to administer your funds, to provide your mirror of AA Life, the monthly magazine. All of this authority we had simply assumed. And by common consent in 1945, you were only too glad to have us do this job. Finally, it began to appear that we couldn't do the job forever, and that all of these years we had been phenomenally lucky. Or to put it more accurately, providentially guarded during our childhood. But the day would come when a great blunder would be made. The day would come when there would be a great scandal. The day might come when there would be a great religious or political division among us. The day might come when, from sheer remoteness and lack of interest or understanding, the support of this overall function would melt away. How could it be guaranteed to continue? Well, then, looking out among the groups, some of us began to regard them as a model. Realized that each group had to have its parent, its founder, so-called, damn bad word that, folks, and that the immediate friend of the founder became the first service committee, and they carried the spiritual message to the groups. But yea, they did more. They enabled it to function by making all of this functional arrangement. So they were the guarantors of its function, the first self-appointed committee. But we had already seen pretty clearly, even by 1945, that this was a condition that could not go on. Founders were too fallible. Moreover, you people had begun to say out at the group and area level that you wished to take your affairs into your own hands. Even as men coming of age. So the question arose, and the debate turned on how could Alcoholics Anonymous as a whole, now sprawling worldwide, take its affairs into its own hands and be secure. How could these headquarters and this board of trustees, containing all this vital authority and capacity to manage, be linked to those it served in the movement and with the world outside? That was the question. Well, I had been around longer and had been in a better position to see, perhaps. And when I realized that there was no linkage between a group of services that had been responsible for half of the growth of this society, for much of its unity, and which would be bound to be responsible to a large extent for its propagation and its relation with the outside world, when I began to see that there was no real linkage between my old friends here and this movement, excepting a couple of faithful gals in the office and Dr. Bob and me, and that my old friends were unknown to you, I got simply scared to death. So I went to my old friends and I said, here, there has got to be a hookup. This movement is now grown to the point where there must be some means by which it can look after its own affairs if it wants to. And even if it doesn't want to, it is still entitled to a look. And my old friend said to me what I would have said a little earlier, and what many an old-timer around AA still says. They said to me, let's keep it simple. Well, probably nobody is more keen about keeping AA simple than I am. But it had begun to be apparent that simplicity could be overdone. An automobile could be greatly simplified and its cost reduced by taking off the wheels or the tires, but it wouldn't go anyplace. And when I reminded my friends of this, they said, but yes, but things are fine. The money is coming in, people think it's all right. If we bring in a great mass of AAs, we're going to have a political brawl in every section of the country, immense confusion, preoccupation with money, with politics, with all those things we so rightfully dread. Well, they were right. But what was the alternative? The alternative was, it seemed to me, that if we didn't take this chance, if we didn't bring in the society to inspect what it had and take it over if it wished, then some fine morning this whole structure here would collapse with a terrible impact upon our capacity to carry the message, God knows what it would do with our relation with the world outside. So the real issue was, should we keep it simple by getting you people in here to see that it lasted, or would we make it complicated by keeping it so simple that it would break apart? That was the question.
Prophetic words from our founder. For sad but true, the day came when Bill and Bob were no longer there to lead the way. How grateful are we to have his vision, this service structure, in place to use in order to stay united and continue to carry the message to the still suffering alcoholic. We lovingly call that structure the upside-down triangle, where every member has a voice. As your delegate, I've been given the privilege of carrying yours to the conference and then reporting back to you what took place. As it says in our service manual, this report is to convey to you the best I can what I saw, heard, and felt. This presentation, along with all conference advisory actions, committee considerations, and floor actions, will be available on our bcyukonaa.org website, or you may request a hard copy through your GSR, DCM, or myself. In August, we will receive the full final conference report, and it will be posted to the same website for members to read, and hard copies will be handed out at the October voting assembly. As a conference member delegate, I serve on the Public Information Committee. Anyone that knows me knows what a godshot this was, as it's been my roots and passion in service. I was elected alternate delegate chair of that committee. I was also given the privilege of a secondary committee of archives, and to my surprise, elected delegate chair of that committee. This being so, my 68th General Service Conference experience actually started at the January board meeting in New York, where I, 10 feet off the ground, attended the trustees committee meetings that were hammering out the agenda items, I will be sharing the outcome of which with you later. It was like reading a book and seeing the movie. Our imaginations can be so grandiose when we read the book that the movie never lives up to the book. Well, I could read the service manual, and my ideas of how these meetings went got so blown up in my head that I had visions of a meeting of the United Nations like you see on the news. So to be there with real people whose passion and love for AA was as deep as mine and yours was humbling. We talked, we shared, and we listened, just like we do here. One thing I know for sure is that our trustees, staff, and office workers go above and beyond in a way that I don't think happens in any other organization in the world. I found out that they all put their pantyhose on, one leg at a time, just like I do. This is a look at the 2018 General Service Conference dashboard. This is a password-protected website that all conference members have access to. Everything now is in 3 languages. This year, we received 650 pages of background material, and your General Service Committee, GSE, synopsized it for your district committee members, DCMs, and your General Service Representatives, GSRs, to get the word out to the groups here in BC Yukon Area 79. There were 79 agenda items. This year, my husband Jason and I brought along companions, our daughter Brandy and granddaughter Nova. We left the house Thursday, April 19th at 6 a.m. with a 2-year-old and excitement for the 9 days to come. God help us. Once again, y'all came along with me in my beautiful notebook. It lived by my side, and I was deeply moved by the beautiful words written and presented to me at the pre-conference assembly in Kamloops. I have to admit, there were times I had doubt and felt unworthy, but through it all felt your love and support guiding me through. Gail, our alternate delegate, who picked this particular book for me, knows me well. Here are the 2 new additions to my collection that my family bought for me while on their gallivanting escapades. We arrived without incident, except I forgot my computer on the plane. It was found and returned, but not before having heart palpitations and thoughts of, WTF am I gonna do now? We settled into our hotel and went out for a bite to eat. We had arrived. Well, almost without incident. We went for New York pizza. When my husband went to the washroom, Nova got up on his chair and was farting around and fell off. Big commotion, everyone concerned, and when all settled down, we couldn't find the pizza. You could almost see a light go off in Jason's eyes as he got up from his chair. Sure enough, we couldn't stop laughing about that one the whole trip. The next day, Friday, some people went to the 11 a.m. meeting at our General Service office, but that is something I got to do in January. So we got one whole day to play together. We spent most of the day on a double-decker bus tour. Saturday morning, our Western region was invited to join the Pacific region on an AA historical tour. 862 Clinton Street is where Bill's wife Lois was born, and the house that Bill and Lois lived until 1939. The poor guy who lives in the house came outside with his little girl and started to talk to some of us. He was very obliging and said he knew when he bought because they were filming a movie. He also shared that he watched a lady for 4 years, every year, just stand across the street and stare. She finally got up the nerve to knock on his door one day and ask him if he knew where he was living. He said he did. What amazed me was that he wasn't angry or upset at all. Scott has a funny story about the lady across the street. Everyone uses her steps to get the good shot. The first time she saw these mobs of people on her stoop, she thought her son might have been acting up again. He liked mooning people from his bedroom window. We also visited 38 Livingston Street, just around the corner, where they earlier lived from 1926 to 29. Then on to Towns Hospital, where Bill had his white light experience. We got back to the hotel in time to have some lunch, then Jason and the kids left for an adventure in Atlantic City for the day. They woke me at 3 a.m. when they got in, trying to be quiet. I got changed and unofficially the work began. First up, the 1728 meeting. This meeting is held for our Class A trustees to give them some first-hand insight into how we operate as a fellowship. There are presentations on our 12 steps, 12 traditions, and 12 concepts. 12 times 12 times 12, 1728. The topic was organization in AA. We heard from our very own Scott H., Canada Trustee at Large, and Mary C., GSO staff member, soon to be rotating off the International Assignment Desk, and Joel C., the outgoing Pacific Regional Trustee. We heard a lot about Tradition 9 and Concept 11. The Remote Communities meeting had a military theme, as there has been so much discussion around how people in the military often find themselves feeling remote. Reports were given by Area 3 Arizona, Area 87 Southwest Quebec, and Area 26 Kentucky. Sharing on the subject is getting broader, and in some areas the scope includes shut-ins, the elderly, deaf, hard of hearing, as well as the military. The focus varies depending on the area and its particular situation. Much of this conversation was from areas new to developing remote communities committees and in the early stages of defining what that might mean to them. We then ended the evening with a delegates only meeting. This is a Delegate 101 where it's time for us Panel 67 delegates to step up and welcome the new Panel 68 delegates, share some experience, strength, and hope, and answer any questions they may have. My hopes are that they felt the same support and love that we did from the 66s. Sunday was the official start. I did not have a cherry blossom tree this year, although I saw many on my travels that reminded me of last year. I did have my quiet time at the desk and a beautiful view of the Hudson from the 35th floor. We received our binders with the schedule, and it was time to get to work. We had roll call. There's really no words I can find to express how I felt when they called my name. You're to answer here or present, and then told that all 136 of you are all now official voting members of the 68th General Service Conference. I believe in my heart we are doing God's work, and I felt honored. We also had a visitor observing from the GSO of India, where the first AA group was started in 1957, and membership today is approximately 40,000. GSO staff member Patrick C., assigned at the moment to the Treatment Accessibilities Desk, actually approached me because he heard of our efforts to have the Punjabi Big Book printed and asked for our help to develop a Punjabi volunteer contacts list. I have asked Verinder, our registrar, to help out with this, and he is thrilled. The PI committee met for 3 hours talking amongst ourselves, the trustees, and the appointed committee members. We decided to start early on Tuesday at 8 a.m. instead of 9 to give us more time. We were asked to keep everything that we heard in confidence until it hit the floor, and we weren't to let it leave the conference until we adjourned. In total, we spent close to 11 hours in committee. The amazing committee report backs from our pre-conference assembly were my constant companion. I felt well prepared and was able to thumb through them every time I weighed in on something. We ended the evening with a fancy dinner that our guests, whom we lovingly refer to as the Delanons, were invited to share. Thank you, General Service Conference 68, for I now have evidence that my husband indeed does know how to iron. Monday morning, when I walked into the room set up conference style for the first time, once again, I thought it hard to believe that people actually had faith in my ability to be there. Considering the incomprehensible demoralization and embarrassment that I bestowed upon myself, my friends, and my loved ones in the past. It's quite humbling. I was brought to tears often thinking about how in this past year, the work at hand to do was the best way ever to push forward with positive action. There was an interpretation booth, the result of last year's recommendation that all conference material be available in English, Spanish, and French. And there were delegate stats: average age 59, oldest 76, youngest 35, average length of sobriety 23, longest sobriety 38, and shortest sobriety 8. After spending the morning in the PI committee, the afternoon was spent with presentations, sharing sessions, and area highlights. There wasn't a dry eye when a young Eastern Canada region new Panel 68 delegate, who speaks only French, was determined to read his area highlights in English. I was told by his regional trustee, Richard B., that he'd been practicing for weeks. Puerto Rico highlights shared there was a tremendous reduction in AA meetings due to Hurricane Katrina. They could not afford to seat their delegate, and the conference lovingly decided to waive the fee. We heard more about the comprehensive communications audit. It is not as yet complete, but I have heard that it says we could be viewed as antiquated and that we need to update our language, particularly when dealing with professionals. We also have been seen as old-fashioned and religious. We have some work to do. We heard from Michelle Grinberg, in her own words, explain about the manuscript litigation. And as General Service Board Chair, she took the brunt of anyone upset by it and apologized to any groups that may have disagreed with the decisions made. My experience was that it wasn't necessary. I saw transparency, utmost respect, and heartfelt dedication for this fellowship from these trusted servants, unlike anything I have ever experienced. We heard of the very important website redesign to help us update our site to keep up with technology, to be more organic, more easily found when people are searching. We saw a wonderful draft visual adaptation of Daily Reflections. It was produced as a conversation starter in coming up with more ideas for placement onto our YouTube channels. We learned there are over 90,000 emails a year to GSO, 1,000 hits a day on need help with a drinking problem, 3,000 requests per month for media and public information, and 12 million visits a year to AA.org. We viewed a finance presentation called Around the Picnic Table, given by our GSO treasurer, David Morris. This is also available on our BC Yukon AA website. He shared with us that there was substantial growth in online contributions, rising from 86,000 in 2010 to 102,000 in 2017. He thought the biggest positive was how the fellowship stepped up to have the most contributions ever to date. He said the thing we need to work on most is supporting Grapevine. The question was then asked why we can't contribute to Grapevine as we can to GSO. Chair of the Grapevine Board, Carol B., answered from the mic that there had actually been an agenda item 2 panels ago and they took no action. I got the feeling that we might see something similar come up again. Who knows? He also shared that 30% of the budget is spent on staffing 5 people to process the contributions. 4 of them are for the snail mail and 1 for the online. He asked us to keep in mind that most contributions need some research for verification, group number, individual contribution, etc. Oftentimes, all the correct info is not given, so they must track it down. Also, a personal thank you is sent to each one. Speaking of online contributions, remember, it's so easy. I do $5 a month and forget about it. If we all did a little, think how it could all add up. Here's for those numbers, people. 7th tradition contributions were a record of 8.4 million, up 474,000 from 2016. Services provided to the fellowship were 10.2 million, up 316,000 from 2016. The shortfall between our 7th tradition and the cost of services provided to the fellowship was 1.8 million, compared to 1.9 million in 2016. AAWS Publishing net income of 3.5 million covered the shortfall, resulting in a net profit of 1.7 million, up 305,000 from 2016. Grapevine subscriptions levels decreased in 2017, resulting in net income of 126,000, down 38,000 from 2016. General fund support of Lavinia was 126,000 compared to 152,000 in 2016. Reserve fund was 14.3 million, resulting in a ratio of 9.5 months compared to 10.3 months in 2016. What 90 people do each day for the hand of AA always to be there, 18,900 pieces of literature shipped daily, 230 emails daily, 40 calls answered daily, 350 seventh traditions processed daily, 6 archives requests answered daily. We are responsible. Here it is, folks, the costs of member services and the amount of contributions needed to be self-supporting. Per person, $7.40. Per group, $152.90. That is per year. This is in U.S. funds, but still, my figures show less than $10 per member and less than $200 per group. He also wanted to commend the efforts of the areas that participated in over $76,000 contributed for the 727 challenge last year when groups, districts, and individuals stepped up on or around July 27th to contribute $7.27 in efforts to be self-supporting. I think these numbers recorded are low. I know that in BC Yukon we did more than what is showing. I just think they may not have been noted when the contribution was made. Well, it's on again. This year, the 7-4 challenge is on to contribute $7.40 on July 4th or thereabout to keep this challenge going. We ended this day with a beautiful walk on the Brooklyn Bridge. We got back just after 11 p.m. as we got split from the group. I was following a lady with white hair whom I thought was Joanne L., a past trustee at Large Canada, but apparently I was not. Just for fun, I wanted to share with you, only in New York can you go to an AA meeting and get a tattoo, apparently all at the same address. Tuesday was another 8 a.m. start to conclude our PI work. The afternoon was workshops and a delegates-only dinner where we elected a new delegate chair from Area 63, South Dakota, Anthony F., and a co-chair, Panel 68 delegate, Becky P., Area 78, Alberta. It was a clean sweep. Ed S., Delegate 91, Saskatchewan, and I were so happy. Panel 68 Delegate Noni M. from Area 80, Manitoba, was elected Delegate Chair of Report and Charter. Western Region rocks. At home, our granddaughter Nova and I look for monkey trees and sing the Monkey Tree Street song. They found one on their adventures and brought a picture back for this granny. We also managed to herd the cats, almost, and get a photo of the entire Canadian Trusted Servants Brigade at the conference. 3 have been photoshopped. Can you guess which ones? Last year, it was socks. This year, bald was in. Things got silly when one of the bald guys wanted a picture with his buddies. We are not a glum lot, that is for sure. Wednesday was a wonderful trip to GSO. They had a lovely lunch for us and then a tour. I got to see Racey's office. She is assigned to the group services desk. We had previously spent some time together at the West Edmonton Mall after visiting Area 78 for their pre-conference. Shenanigans were had when we rode the furry animals through the mall. I promised her I would tell you guys that when she is not riding furries, she is very, very serious. Upon our return, we heard some fantastic presentations. AA Technology, where innovation meets the traditions. Attraction, not promotion, AA's relation to the world. And today's alcoholic, inclusion, not exclusion. Every one of them spoke about the need to avoid the fear of change and embrace technology in order to reach the millions of still suffering alcoholics. We had our trustee elections. Eastern Canada Regional Trustee came down to Area 81, Jean-Claude C., and Area 86, Jan L. Out of the hat, Jan L. Pacific Regional Trustee came down to Area 3, Kathy F., and Area 9, Cesar F. Kathy F. was elected. We started report backs and had electronic voting this year. What a wonderful time saver. Instantly you could see the results. One thing that stood out for me was that there was a very apparent, clear group conscience speaking, way more than 2/3, most of the time. Later, we began our Archives Committee session with a working dinner. Thursday, it was a 9 a.m. start, and we got right down to business with more committee report backs. We had a lovely presentation from our archivist, Michelle Mirza. A fun fact she shared was that over 900 artifacts were buried in a time capsule under the 911 memorial site. Apparently, one of them is from AA. We don't know what, though. We saw the newly acquired film from the early 40s, rare color footage of the co-founders Bill and Bob together with their wives in the garden. It was amazing. We heard an audio of Bernard B. Smith, Class A trustee, give his classic "Why Do We Need a Conference" talk in 1951. It also was amazing. The Archives Committee finished up business with a working lunch. I then had another working dinner with our archivist, making sure that our report back was spot on and ready to present, much like we do with our reporter, recorders, and committee chairs at an assembly or a quarterly. We had a presentation called AA Principles and Fiduciary Responsibility. David R., the publishing dude, as he is lovingly called, officially the publishing director, and David N., AAWS director, shared a wonderful, informative piece on protecting the integrity of AA's message. They also shared with us that at this time there is a recovery website using the domain alcoholicsanonymous.com and the AA name to draw in clients. A letter to please cease and desist has been sent to them. We will see what happens. I will keep you posted as to how this unfolds. We went until after 10 p.m. We were supposed to have a Western Region ice cream date, but everyone bailed for sleep instead. I think Scott still went. He is an ice cream machine. I will now share with you some of the results of all your group's hard work. From the Agenda Committee came the theme of the 2019 General Service Conference, Our Big Book, 80 Years, 71 Languages. Archives is my second committee, and we were asked to review a draft of the proposed publication, Our Great Responsibility, a selection of Bill W.'s General Service Conference talks, 1951 to 1970. It passed, and we can expect to see it in about a year's time. In cooperation with the professional community, CPC, other than some text changes in pamphlets, it was recommended that AAWS develop a company page on LinkedIn so that professionals can find accurate information on AA. This passed. There was also an additional consideration to remove the text from Let's Be Friendly with Our Friends from the CPC workbook. The Corrections Committee discussed the request to create a new pamphlet for inmates released after long-term incarceration and took no action. They suggested that the current corrections materials be revised for this purpose. The Finance Committee recommended that the annual contributions from an individual AA member of $3,000 be increased to $5,000, and it passed. There was an additional consideration to add language regarding group-level electronic contributions, passing the virtual basket to the section Passing the Basket in the AA Group Treasurer pamphlet. The Grapevine Committee recommended to allow outside sales, and it passed. They also reviewed the social media report regarding Instagram, Facebook, and Google for nonprofit, and suggested to continue to explore a social media strategy, taking into account anonymity, security, affiliation, outside contributions, privacy, and promotion. The committee thanked AA Grapevine Inc. for including the audio strategy in their forthcoming strategic plan. We heard about the new Grapevine app and the new Grapevine book, AA in the Military. I'd like to also share with you the new Grapevine YouTube page. Check out Johnny C's story. It's amazing. This is an example of new ways that we can use technology to our advantage for that still suffering alcoholic at home sitting in the dark in front of their computer, tablet, or phone to find a solution. The International Conventions and Regional Forums Committee recommended that Indianapolis, Indiana, and St. Louis, Missouri be considered for possible sites for the 2030 International. Note, don't forget we have a Western Canada Regional Forum coming in Area 91, Regina, Saskatchewan, June 8th to 10th. And after the International Convention in Detroit in 2020, it's our turn in Vancouver, 2025. Get ready to volunteer. Yahoo! The Literature Committee had 19 agenda items. It was recommended the draft pamphlets with the new titles, Experience, Strength, and Hope, AA for the Woman, Experience, Strength, and Hope, LGBTQ Alcoholics in AA, and Experience, Strength, and Hope, AA for the Alcoholics with Mental Health Issues and their sponsors, be approved. They all passed. Also, the recommendations submitted by BC Yukon Area 79 to update the DVD, your AA General Service Office, the Grapevine, and the General Service Structure passed. Yahoo! Another recommendation that passed was the pamphlet, The God Word, currently published in Great Britain to be adopted by AAWS. In Policy and Admissions, they recommended that the process for polling the General Service Conference between annual meetings be approved, and it was. The committee discussed the question, does the U.S.-Canada service structure have the responsibility of sponsoring other countries via direct invitation to observe our General Service Conference, and agreed that they did not, but wishes to remain open to requests. I sit on the Public Information Committee. What a thrill it is for me. At our pre-conference assembly in April, when it came to discussing the new PSA, Public Service Announcement changes, there was a lone minority voice. I wish I knew the fellow's name, but he felt strongly about the dialogue in it, sounding like AA would fix you. I think he felt that he wasn't being heard, and I promised him that I would take his voice with me. When I got to committee in New York, there were others that felt the same, and I got to share his opinion. And the result was that one line in the video was changed from, "That's where AA came to my rescue," to "AA offered a solution." It passed. It was also recommended the new young people's video submission be accepted, and it was. I can't wait for you to see it. It was fantastic, the job that they did. Another recommendation was that new language be developed to reflect that AA's anonymity traditions are not a cloak protecting criminal or inappropriate behavior, and that calling the proper authorities does not go against any traditions. The committee had an additional consideration that the trustees PI committee develop information on the cost of a 6-month and a full-year trial on the use of Google AdWords and Google Grants and report back in 2019. Please keep in mind that submissions for young people's videos are still being accepted at aa.org. I'm also really excited to share with you the brand new Anonymity in Social Media poster. It's a free PDF available in 3 languages that your group or committee can have made into a poster or use for your workshop flyer. It reads, "Anonymity is so fragile, you can break it with one finger." Last but not least is the new YouTube page for AAWS. Check it out and subscribe. In the Report and Charter Committee, recommendations that passed, such as text be added to the service manual about our trademark Blue People, adding the word panel to the glossary, and visual display boxes about our 3 service boards. The committee took no action to change Chapter 2, 3, and 5, or remove a section where it talks about using the circle and triangle symbol. However, it did recommend and pass that they undertake a thorough evaluation, update, and redesign, and come back with a progress report in 2019. It was also recommended and passed that any committee considerations be published in the conference final report. The Treatment and Accessibilities Committee recommended that the Accessibility for All Alcoholics pamphlet name be changed to Access to AA, Members Share on Overcoming Barriers. Also, that their scope and procedures be expanded to include remote communities. And in additional considerations, that the committee produce a remote communities kit or workbook. They also suggested that they continue to explore ways to meet the needs of the deaf and hard of hearing, gather shared experience on technology used for participation, review the websites in regards to, and suggested Grapevine develop a book to include sharing from members who are deaf and hard of hearing. In the Trustees Committee, from our neck of the woods up for election was Carolyn W. on the slate of directors of AAWS. Kate W. and Scott H. were on the slate of trustees for the General Service Board, and Kate W. and Tommy H. on the slate of directors for AA Grapevine. All were accepted. The committee thoughtfully reviewed the proposal to censure and to reorganize in the 2 proposals regarding the manuscript and took no action. That's it, folks. Those are the highlights. If there's something you specifically want to know, please just ask. By the end of August, we can expect the full final conference report. It will be posted to our BC Yukon AA website for members to read, and hard copies will be distributed to all the groups at the October voting assembly. The day is now Friday, and we finished with report backs and 8 floor actions. We said until we meet again because we just couldn't bring ourselves to say goodbye. The conference was officially adjourned just after 10 p.m. I had serious cankles. Saturday morning, I picked up my daily reflections from the book signing table. It was a gift from our past delegate, Jen. It was the trustees' farewell breakfast where Joel C. from the Pacific region and Richard B. from the Eastern Canada region said their farewells and shared their gratitude. I had the privilege of knowing them both, and they will be missed. We closed with the Serenity Prayer in 3 languages. We had come from all over Canada and the U.S. to do what Bill had envisioned all those years ago. I think he would be proud. It's 10:30 a.m. and they loaded us onto a bus and headed for Stepping Stones. To walk the grounds, look through the house and Wits End, and all of Lois's painstaking documentation before she died was heartwarming. I found Lois on Bill's Harley. If Lois can do it, it must be okay. See you on the road to happy destiny, my friends. I will end with the first bit of Why Do We Need a Conference from the late Bernard B. Smith, Class A trustee. We may not need a general service conference to ensure our own recovery. We do need it to ensure the recovery of the alcoholic who still stumbles in the darkness one short block from this room. We need it to ensure recovery of a child being born tonight, destined to alcoholism. From the bottom of my heart, thank you, BC Yukon Area 79. Until we meet again.